Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. Also broadcasting live on Twitter. I suppose I should say. I feel like I don't normally say that. So welcome in. All audiences here. Please let me know. I had to readjust my setup a little bit tonight after getting back from Big 12 Media Days. Let me know if the audio level is too high or too low. If it's too high, we would call it too hot. Too hot in the radio industry. Let me know how it is, guys. Appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you for watching, viewing, following along with the content for Big 12 Media Days. It was a blast. It was a whirlwind. I wish that I had two of me to be able to go and do like double the work there because there's just so much going on. A lot of good stuff to come out of it. I have been trying to digest everything that has come after it because there's so much good reporting done there. There's just so many good sound bites that are happening all over the place. You just can't be everywhere to get it all. So I've been doing a lot of reading. Great work by many of my colleagues that were down there at Big 12 Media Days. And some of that today is going to be what I talk about. Now, you see the headline on the video. BYU fans certainly are going to be very interested in this. Jake Retzlaff, where is he going? We had a report from Ben Criddle, who does radio in Utah and is a very well-sourced guy. He has a big list of a bunch of places that Jake Retzlaff supposedly might go. I have one to add. And when I say that this video is about the Big 12 being a possibility, keep that in mind. When I say I have one to add here, something that I was told at Big 12 Media Days. Okay, so we're going to do that. Also, man, Cody Campbell spoke. Speaking of guys who did great work, the 365 crew, they just happened to spot Cody Campbell walking around. Great stuff. Good watching out. They go get him for an interview, and he had a lot of awesome things to say. So I want to play you some of the highlights of that, and we're going to do that and react to everything that Cody Campbell said, because you guys know, man, I'm as on board with the Cody Campbell thing as could possibly be right now. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I very much enjoyed listening to what he had to say. So shout out to the 365 crew for knocking that one down for us. We've got a Big 12 favorite, people. Whether you like it or not, whether there's a preseason poll or not, there is a Big 12 favorite, 100%, because the same team was picked by the coaches in an unofficial poll that was done by Brett McMurphy. The same team was picked by the media in the unofficial media poll done by the Gambling Gauchos. Shout out to my guys there. And the same team was picked by Bill Connolly's S&P Plus by a fairly considerable margin as well to win the Big 12. So we're going to talk about who the Big 12 favorites are. All right. And Paul Finebaum, everybody's favorite, our good old friend, is he's at it again, coming after a Big 12 coach, coming after one of the most prominent figures in the Big 12. So you got to love that. Got to love that. Thanks all for being here. Please, as some have said in here, I believe that was Shorts All Year, my friend Shorts All Year, like the video. It's a very simple request. Look, it's not even coming from me this time. It's coming from Shorts All Year, everybody. Please like the video. Please like the video. I really wish that my camera would focus up here correctly. That would sure be nice, right? If it focused on me instead of the background. Yeah, there we go. Maybe working. All right. Shorts All Year says like the video, so please do that. It's totally free. It is also free to comment. Guys, please do that. Please subscribe to the channel. Fill up the chat. If you do want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. Could not do it without your support, but have no fear. Look, Fong Wei, I appreciate you. Okay, he says, I can't comment on whether Retzlaff's going to Oklahoma State since I can't pay my bills. You sure can. You can comment, Fong Wei, and you know what? I'll be paying attention for it. I'll see if you got something there, okay? Don't feel like that's the only way you'll ever get on, but if you want to guarantee that you're going to get on, you can do that with a super chat. So thank you. Thank you, those who do that. Let's see. Please subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It's ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. ofbnews.com. Totally free. We are approaching 3,500 or Gosh, I can't even remember how many damn people are subscribed to my newsletter. We're about to hit 4,400 people that subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. So appreciate everybody who does that. Let's see what else. Open for Business Big 12 newsletter is about to have the anonymous player survey. Okay, so if you want the Big 12 anonymous player survey, what they think about who's going to win the league, toughest place to play, toughest scheme to prepare for. I even got some great comments on the most NIL they've been offered or the craziest things they've been offered to transfer. That's the one that I am most excited to drop for all of you guys. You're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed at ofbnews.com or click the link in the description of this video to get on top of that. So thank you for that. One last thing, if you are not watching live, it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to drop a question or comment there, if you do that, I will kick off the next show with it. And that's why we start with my friend Stuart. What's up, Stuart? Stuart, I appreciate you. Stuart says, and he's reacting to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. He says, love the link to the Iowa State Kicking It crew in the Open for Business newsletter. After 2 disappointing years, Jerome Tang has already sucked me back in, and my hopes are high. All right, so you may be asking there, John, what is he talking about? A link to Iowa State site, an Iowa State fan site, and then mentioning Jerome Tang? Well, it's because Jerome Tang, who is probably the number one most hated man in the state of Iowa, at least for those that wear red and yellow, Jerome Tang went on Cyclone Fanatics podcast. So shout out to them. Big time get. That's a good get. And you can go listen to the interview. You can find the link in the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter if you were a subscriber. So that was very interesting. I will say I was a bit disappointed that they didn't really ask about what happened with Spygate, as I was calling it, a couple of years ago at Hilton, which, hey, said a lot of things about Jerome Tang. Those guys did. You think you get him on. Look, for everything that happened, he probably deserved to be put on the hot seat a bit there and asked a question or two about it, but they passed. It's still worth a listen if you want to go listen to it. Anyway, appreciate you for sending that my way, Stuart. And thanks for subscribing to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Michael, what's going on, Michael? I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Michael says, I may miss live tonight, but wanted to say what's up. I love the low expectations for BYU again. BYU upgraded with transfers, returning talent, and coaching consistency. Losing Retzy hurts. Well, I like Retzy as a nickname. Losing Retzy hurts, but overlooking BYU is a mistake. Hashtag go Cougs. I heard from a lot of BYU fans with the latest video I dropped, which was earlier today. If you want to go watch ESPN's Matt Berry, who was on with me, and BYU fans were very upset he did not mention BYU when talking about favorites in the top tier of the Big 12 Conference this year, which, hey, fair enough. I already did a video, guys. Quarterback room may have more upside now without Jake Retzlaff. Now, I think it also has lowered the floor for the team, but maybe the ceiling is higher as well, okay? So I'm not going to totally discount BYU myself. To me, they're like tier 2, probably tier 2. I know I was saying waffling between tier 2, tier 3. I mean, probably back end of tier 2 for me with BYU, but I'm not sure that that's all that much different than what I had with Retzlaff, which tells you a little bit about, I think Retzlaff's a solid quarterback. I don't think this is a total disaster class scenario. But yes, Michael, I am actually a little jealous. We'll get to my K-State Wildcats a little bit later on in this video. I'm actually a little bit jealous of the low expectations. Just be able to jump up and surprise somebody. That has not been the case for my Cats in a while, and it definitely is not the case this year, which is crazy to me. Crazy to me. I thought this year would be one where the expectations were a little bit lower based on how inconsistent last year was. But anyway, here we are. Michael, my biggest takeaway from that is that you're calling Jake Retzlaff Retzy. That is an outstanding nickname. I like it. It's very baseball. I feel like the standard baseball manager nickname for somebody or just a baseball player nickname for somebody is just to add a Y to the end of their name. So I like Retzy. Make it short, add a Y. You got a baseball nickname. Where is Retzy going to go, guys? Where is Retzy going to wind up? That's what we're here to talk about today. Jake Retzlaff. Retzy. Where is Retzy going? Okay. Well, a week and a half later, after the news first broke that Jake Retzlaff was going to be leaving BYU, we still do not have an official destination. We do not know where Jake Retzlaff is going. But it now sounds like it could be in the Big 12. Jake Retzlaff may stay in the Big 12, people. And this is something I was told down at Media Days. I have a little bit to add to the report that we are going to talk about here. But I was kind of like, well, I don't know that I'm really supposed to mention that, but it's now out there. It seems like people are now aware of this. So let's chat. Let's talk about it, my friends. And by the way, could Jake Retzlaff even be playing in Provo this year? Let me tag that on as a little tease here. Could Jake Retzlaff, could Retzy actually be playing quarterback in Provo? I do think it's possible. It's at least possible, okay? Be quiet here for a second. All right. We got official reports. If you want something that's like official, we got official reports. Jake Retzlaff withdrawing from BYU. So he announced that. I say official reports. He announced it on Instagram. Okay? Jake Retzlaff announced it on Instagram, the place where all news breaks. You can certainly trust everything that comes across the internet, right? Especially when it's on Instagram. Let's go see this. In case you don't believe me, here it is. Jake Retzlaff withdrawing from BYU. So that much we know is there. Pretty nice message here from Jake Retzlaff. Nice message. Very thankful for his time at BYU, but he is now turning the page, embracing the next chapter. Okay? So the Jake Retzlaff era at BYU is officially over. If you had any doubt about that and the initial reporting around that, he is gone. But when he initially left, the reporting seemed to be like Jake Drew from the Deseret News. I think it said like it may be as soon as the middle of the next upcoming week. That didn't happen. We didn't get that. So everybody's been kind of sitting here waiting like, all right, what's going on? Big rumor was Notre Dame. Didn't hear anything about that. Tennessee, another team that makes a lot of sense, that was coming after other Big 12 quarterbacks. Have not really heard anything about that since then. Also, how was Jake Retzlaff going to get to one of these schools? That is one of the questions that's been asked, and it's a very good one because the rules changed for grad transfers. So grad transfer can't just leave at any point in time. Plus, it seemed like there was a dispute over whether or not Jake Retzlaff would even be considered a grad transfer because he hasn't actually graduated. There's still like one more class that had to go through. And then there was a lot of conflicting reporting about whether or not BYU could put him on. It's a very new rule that just came up in the last couple of weeks where there's an extra list you can put on to allow somebody to transfer and hit the portal outside of the normal windows. But that is for basically if you have somebody it's like kind of a cut. Like you're cutting them from the roster and you're going to let them transfer so that they can, for their career, they can go play somewhere else. And BYU can't really do that because they would not have actually cut him had he stayed and taken the 7-game suspension. Like he still would have been on the roster. So how's he going to get somewhere new? Well, the reporting now says he will just exit the school, leave BYU, won't be enrolled there anymore, and he can just go walk on somewhere. So not a scholarship player, but he can walk on, which obviously is less of an impediment today than it would have been 5-10 years ago because NIL can take care of some of that. If someone's motivated to get you on their roster, you just leave, bypass the portal, go walk on somewhere, kick in, I don't know, whatever the cost of the education would be, an extra 70, 80K, something like that, and boom, there's your scholarship, more or less. So it's a portal workaround, and that seems to be what's happening here with Jake Retzlaff, but we still don't know where. And after thinking like, okay, wow, like this seems like it may be Notre Dame, seems like it may be happening very fast. This could be over very quickly. It is dragged on, and now this list that we got from Ben Criddle, who again does an outstanding job covering BYU, definitely a connected dude. He does a great radio show. Here you go. Here are all the schools that Ben Criddle is listing for Jake Retzlaff as a possibility. So we've got Notre Dame and Tennessee. Both of those do make the list. I will file like Georgia, Alabama, Nebraska. I mean, obviously, like Nebraska has Dylan Raiola. Alabama and Georgia, I think seem pretty set at quarterback, right? Even though it is a little bit different from where they were at last year. Maybe that's just as a backup. Maybe they just would feel better about having some sort of veteran presence in there. But then you start looking here, okay, like UNLV, Stanford, Maryland, but Oklahoma State pops off the page. Boom, Big 12 team, right? Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State is a team that definitely needs a quarterback. I know Mike Gundy had some glowing remarks about Zane Flores at Big 12 Media Days. Oklahoma State needs a quarterback. I for one, do not trust that. If I were an Oklahoma State fan, I would have a hard time trusting what the quarterback situation is. Even if you're a Haas Heine believer, I don't know, man. Last year, watching that quarterback carousel and how that went, I would certainly have some trepidation if I were an Oklahoma State fan, and I'd be open to being like, hey, I mean, Jake Retzlaff did start and win a bunch of games last year in the Big 12, even if, again, I think the ceiling is a bit limited there. So that makes sense. Oklahoma State, right? Well, who's another Big 12 team that is dealing with a quarterback controversy of sorts, just a quarterback battle, retooling the roster, rebuilding the roster? Well, that's West Virginia. Okay, so in addition to this list, and I someone did tell me Oklahoma State, but I also was hearing West Virginia from people at Big 12 Media Days as a school that could be interested in a potential Jake Retzlaff landing spot. Now, maybe that information I got is just old. I would certainly trust Ben over me. He is much more well-connected, obviously, to BYU's program. But I figured I would mention that West Virginia was another one that was told to me. Now, West Virginia's got like a three-way-ish, I guess, quarterback battle. Nico Martial, who was at one point like the young phenom that was going to be next at West Virginia. I don't think the star is quite as bright anymore these days, but maybe he can turn that around. Then you've got Texas A&M transfer Jalen Henderson. He's a guy that's bounced around a lot. Played at Fresno, I believe, to start his career. He has played and started some games, but sparingly throughout his career. And then you got Max Brown, who started at Florida, Charlotte transfer. That's kind of what West Virginia has going on. So both of those schools feel very unsettled at QB. Like if they could get a more certain type of answer there, it would make a lot of sense. It's incredibly intriguing because it would be within the conference, quite obviously. But if I'm looking at these, I don't know, it does make more sense to me that Oklahoma State would be the better landing spot. Like I think Oklahoma State makes more sense than West Virginia. I will put it that way. Because Mike Gundy needs to win now. Oklahoma State has to win now. There are more assurances needed with the Oklahoma State football program right now than I think West Virginia. Not that West Virginia fans are not frustrated with being like a 500 program. They certainly want to elevate. But when you're going through a coaching change and you have as much turnover on the roster as they do, I think fans, whether they really like to or not, will begrudgingly have some grace for whatever is going to happen this year for Rich Rod. So if it's, hey, let Nico play, he's got a couple years left. That could be a multi-year option there if you let him go at it. I think that would make a little bit more sense in West Virginia's position because you're going to have a bit of a grace period there. And if it's take some lumps with a new starting quarterback here instead of, hey, we need to go find the guy that is ready to go right now. That's a different deal. That seems more up the alley of what Mike Gundy needs. He can't be taking chances, man. These two guys at Oklahoma State, correct me if I'm wrong, Cowboy fans, but I believe that neither has taken a snap for the Oklahoma State Cowboys, correct? That's a scary proposition. That is definitely a scary proposition. Mike Gundy just went 0 for last year in the Big 12. It's not just that he had his worst season. It's that he went 0 for in the Big 12, and he's right now coming off of taking a restructured contract that gave him a reduced salary. So, when you're doing something like that, when that's what leadership is handing down, and then you're taking it, you're in a position where you need to win. You need to win. So if Jake Retzlaff is out there and you think he's an upgraded quarterback and he's definitely somebody that knows the Big 12, understands the conference, and is experienced, I can see why that's an attractive option. Maybe West Virginia is just a little bit more like kicking the tires. But I'd be very curious to know how serious of an option this is. And hey, if we're sitting here talking about timeline, all right, I don't mean to be conspiratorial or anything, but if we're talking about timeline and saying, well, it seemed like Retzlaff was going to be able to announce this right away, and then now it hasn't happened, and we're past media days. Well, if he is going somewhere in the Big 12, I would certainly have wanted to wait until after media days if I were the coach to not blow that up into a massive story there, because everybody would have been there covering it. That would have been the top thing. Oklahoma State was kind of a boring team coming into media days this year. You're like, hey, I mean, Mike Gundy is typically a good quote, and he did give some good quotes as always, but there just weren't a lot of sexy storylines or players that are really well known that were there for Oklahoma State. So that would have immediately become story number one had it happened. So I'm just floating that out there, just putting that out there. I had other people telling me that Jake Retzlaff is still telling people, or had been telling people, that Notre Dame was the spot. So maybe that still is. Maybe that still is. I don't know. Notre Dame's got CJ Carr, highly touted prospect from a couple of years ago that seemed to be the guy next in line. I still thought, Tennessee was a place that made more sense if it was going to be one of the massive big programs, which, paraphrasing, that was one of the early reports out of the Deseret News, is that that's where he was going to wind up, was a big-time program. But Tennessee's in a worse spot. They do not have a CJ Carr, right? They've got a guy who could be CJ Carr, but is young right now in George McIntyre. And then they've got Jake Aguilar, who is an App State transfer. And I guess to me, that would be the question. Does Tennessee think that Jake Retzlaff is discernibly better than a guy who was a pretty good quarterback at App State and making the jump up there? I don't know the answer to that. That's something Tennessee would have to tell you. Tennessee would have to tell you. Okay. So that's the update on Jake Retzlaff. It's now getting out there that it sounds like some Big 12 schools are in the mix and trying to get involved there, and that would be so fascinating and entertaining. If he wound up at West Virginia plays at BYU for the Big 12 home opener in Provo. So you want to talk about juicy storylines. If that were somehow to happen, you could have Jake Retzlaff, former BYU quarterback, starting in Provo in a Big 12 home opener for the Cougs. That's crazy. All right. Keep filling up the chat. You can click the $sign below the chat box if you would like to submit a question or comment and guarantee that it gets on tonight. I appreciate everybody who does that. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. All of that is great as well. Let's see. John S. Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you're not watching live and you would like to leave a question or comment there. I'll kick off the next show with it. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Big 12 Players Anonymous Survey is coming up. You're going to get that in a bunch of different chunks here pretty soon, starting this week. So sign up at ofbnews.com, if you are trying to do that. So please, be great if you could support me that way. Michael going with the baseball names. We were talking about Retzi earlier. Where's Retzi going to wind up? Kurtzy. Yes, Kurtzy is very much a baseball name. When I used to broadcast K-State baseball, shout out to my guy Matt Walters, who did those broadcasts with me. I think he gave me the Kurtzy nickname long before that, actually. But especially it made sense when we were doing K-State baseball together to be calling me Kurtzy. That's how it is. That's what a baseball coach or a manager would call you, no doubt. So thank you, Michael. I have been called Kurtzy many times before. Pacific Northwest Ute says he hears Retzy's going to play pitcher at Utah. Okay. All right. Utah was that initial list. Who was it? The student report from BYU that the initial list had Utah on it. Somebody had floated Utah out there, and I was like, guys, come on now. The Devin Dampier show is not going to be. Kyle Whittingham wants to bring in that kind of distraction when he has Devin Dampier as quarterback. No thanks. But hey, pitcher, if it's just going to be baseball, it's a little bit different. Little bit different. Okay. All right. We've got a Big 12 favorite, folks. Whether the Big 12 wanted there to be one or not, there is. Because the Big 12 did not do a preseason media poll. That didn't stop an unofficial media poll from happening. Shout out to the Gambling Gauchos. It also did not stop Brett McMurphy, now of On3, to take a poll of Big 12 head coaches that were at Media Day to see who they think is going to make the Big 12 championship game. And it did not stop Bill Connolly of ESPN for releasing his model, his S&P Plus, one of the best that's out there, from picking its conference champ. And guess what? All of those entities, coaches, media, and Bill Connolly's S&P Plus model, they all picked the same team to win the Big 12. They all picked the same team. And frankly, like I am very surprised. I am very surprised. I'm honestly a little bit leery of it and disappointed. And if you guys know my background, you guys know what college I went to school at, you guys know who gave me this comms degree that allows me to sit here and talk on this microphone on YouTube as eloquently as I do. You guys will know exactly why I feel that way. Okay. So Big 12 got rid of its preseason media poll. For those who have been living under a rock, or at least just not watching this channel. And it did surprise me. Let me make this little point. It surprised me a little bit, some of the pushback that I saw to this. Some people just really do not get this. And, you know, like, so Tom Fernelli, and it seems like it's two camps. National people, which some of this, it makes it really hard. I try to be very understanding to national reporters, like people who cover the sport, whether it's a show reporter, whatever. I try to be very cognizant of the fact that, yeah, what's going to drive numbers on their content is SEC and Big Ten. I get it. That's why I'm here doing this Big 12 show, because the Big 12 definitely deserves dedicated coverage. But I get where their audiences are. But it really seems like the people who covered the sport on that level are very dismissive of this, just for the sake of being dismissive of the Big 12 and thinking, well, this is silly. The Big 12 is stupid because it's just this little dumb conference. I mean, that's the attitude that you get. I like Tom Fernelli. I really like the Cover 3 podcast. It's an excellent college football podcast. There's a lot of vibes there from those guys of that type of attitude. And Tom Fernelli had a tweet where he was like responding to the Arizona State part specifically from Brett Yormark, where he said Arizona State was hurt by the preseason media poll. And he was like, oh, yeah, Arizona State, who made it and got a bye. Yeah, they were so hurt. Well, they were behind Boise. They were behind Boise. And that meant that in November, we were talking about whether Tulane or Army was going to hop the Big 12 champion to keep the Big 12 champion out of the playoff. Yes, it hurt Arizona State's perception. Yes, they also still got a bye because of how the format was set up, but they probably should have been. They certainly would have a case to be the 3 seed last year as opposed to the 4. They didn't get it, and there was really no consideration to it, in large part because of what the perception was of them before the season, that they were the worst team in the Big 12. It did hurt. But I would also say the real argument is that it hurt BYU, because BYU got no at-large love when they were picked 13th, and they're in a conference where the team picked 16th won it. You guys have heard me go over this a million times. It really seems like such a common sense thing to me that, like, yes, of course that made a difference. But there's this national attitude to it. Bill Connolly, in the piece that I just mentioned, his S&P Plus that I was reading, he had the same attitude where he called it silly. Like, well, I don't understand, man. Look, I'll stand by your mark on that. Thank you for being proactive at fighting some of the narratives, doing stuff that Dan Beebe, Bob Bowlesby would never do. I very much appreciate that. The other crowd just seems to be like more of an older school crowd that's used to kind of the establishment ways things were done in college athletics before the last 5 years, and everything changed, and commissioners are being hired from the entertainment industry all over the place because it's a different world now. So that I'm a little bit more understanding of, right? Like, I heard someone say, well, it's a story if the team picks 16th finishes first, and your job as commissioners to be promoting stories. Yes, it's a story, and it gets a lot of run for all the wrong reasons. Hey, look, the last place team in this league won it. That means the league can't be any good. That's the insinuation or just outright declaration that comes with it. So no, you don't. You don't want to promote that story. This is, look, as a PR professional, PR 101, man. PR 101. Anyway, so that aside, Gambling Gauchos did the unofficial media poll. I voted in this. I did not vote this way. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now. I did not vote K-State number 1, but K-State finished number 1, whether you guys like it or not. All right. So bring this up on the screen for you to show you exactly how everybody finished in the Gambling Gauchos media poll. There you go. K-State 1, Arizona State 2, Baylor 3, Texas Tech 4, Iowa State rounds out the top 5. BYU fans, I'm sure, will, the same that we were hearing from at the beginning of the show, will not be very pleased with being number 8. Utah, a little surprised Utah wasn't higher at 7. Colorado fans probably won't be thrilled with being tied for 9th. And UCF, if you're looking at, what's going to win the league based on last year, UCF, congratulations. Scott Frost in pole position to be a Big 12 champ based on last year by being picked 16th. Also, watch out for Oklahoma State, picked 13th in the BYU spot. Watch out for those teams. Oklahoma State destined to start 9-0 this year. Anyway, that is the media poll. All right, so there's one. Part 2, Brett McMurphy, formerly of the Action Network, now of On3. He polled the coaches on who they thought would make the Big 12 championship game. So obviously, if you're just running around, he's doing this at Big 12 Media Day. I assume, because that's when the story dropped right after that. I shouldn't totally declare that, but I assume that is the deal. In that situation, you can't ask them to rank everybody 1 through 16, but you can ask them, hey, who's going to make the Big 12 championship game? That's what he did, and there are the 2 choices, K-State and Iowa State. A Farmageddon rematch is what the coaches selected here. And it's very interesting how the voting specifically breaks down on this, because this is not just as simple as K-State 1, Iowa State 2. The voting, which is right here, look at that. Iowa State gets 7 runner-up votes. So all the votes they got were for runner-up, but because there were 7, they're there at number 2, just ahead of Arizona State, who a couple people did pick to win the league. 2 coaches picked Texas Tech to win the league, but 6 picked K-State to win the league. 2 more than anybody else. TCU, Baylor, Utah all also got a little bit of love. 2 people picked TCU to win the league. I'm telling you, don't sleep on TCU. There is great value based on where they're at in the preseason, over-under win totals, and Big 12 championship odds. Don't sleep on the Horned Frogs. They do have a tough schedule, but don't sleep on the Frogs at all. One coach in there on Utah. Would be really curious to know who that is. Coaches could not vote for themselves, by the way, which probably goes without saying, but just wanted to throw that out there so that everybody knows that. So now you've got K-State as the media champ, K-State as the coaches champ, and just to pile on Bill Connolly's S&P Plus from ESPN, K-State picked first in the Big 12. They're 18th overall. Arizona State is 2nd and 22nd overall. And the S&P Plus picked out the top 5 games of the year based on the preseason rankings. 4 of the 5 involved K-State. So you've got Farmageddon in Ireland, TCU at K-State, Texas Tech at K-State, and K-State at Utah are 4 of the top 5 most important games in the league this year, according to S&P Plus. Texas Tech at Arizona State is the other. So why is K-State getting this much love is my question here, okay? Because I legitimately thought, going into this offseason, hey, K-State was a bit disappointing last year. Started 7-1, finished 8-4, got drubbed at home. It was closer at the end than it probably should have been. Got really handled at home by Arizona State. Limped home to the finish line. Didn't play well in Ames. Avery Johnson had some bright spots. Did set the K-State record for passing touchdowns in a season, but he was very inconsistent. DJ Giddens is gone. Just thought, man, people are going to want to see consistency out of Avery Johnson before they're going to vote this team up at the top of the Big 12 standings. But here we are, late-ish in the offseason, and K-State is picked first. So why is that? Big 12 feels very wide open. That's been the narrative, like who's tier 1, who's tier 2. So many different teams could win it. You saw how many teams there by the coaches were picked all the way down to Utah of teams by coaches that they think can win it. So why would K-State be the favorite there? To me, there's one clear thing. There's one word here for why K-State is picked, and it's stability. It's stability. Because what you have in the Big 12 is a bunch of instability. The standings are wild. And I don't mean instability in terms of conference realignment, right? But instability in terms of the standings. Like, that's why they're ditching the media poll, because it got so wild in year 1. Felt like it was going to be a bad move to keep doing that. You've got like 8, I would say like 7 or 8 teams that feel like they've got a legit shot to win this thing. Last year, 16-13 were the two biggest stories of the league. And so in an environment like that, you look around and you say, well, what team is most likely to be in the mix that I can count on to be in the mix? And if you say that, you look at K-State, 3 straight 9+ win seasons. Chris Klieman has won at least 8 games in every year except the COVID year at K-State. So you'd say, well, the odds are Chris Klieman is going to at least be in contention. And with so much fluctuation and stuff going wild, if they're at least going to be in contention, let me ride with that. That's what my guess would be here, combined with a little bit of Avery Johnson as a high ceiling. So it's stability with Chris Klieman, plus everybody can see the talent in Avery Johnson, even if you don't believe in the consistency yet, and say, well, that gives them a pretty damn high ceiling if things come together and he takes a step forward this year. Like even last year, there's the narrative is certainly top 5 teams in the Big 12 struggled. Bottom half of the league did pretty damn well. Well, the top 5 teams up there, K-State, yes, disappointed a little bit, but not like the others. K-State still went 8-4, won a bowl game, and finished 9-4. So there's still some stability there. Okay, whereas you're looking at Arizona State, like, all right, yes, I understand they won the league last year, but they were 3-9 the year before. Kenny Dillingham is still 34, maybe 35 now. I don't know when his birthday was. He's younger than me. Can he deal with the expectations? That's not an established program where you've seen it. Texas Tech hasn't won 9 games in a regular season since 2009, a stat that they're sick of me throwing out there, but hard to trust. TCU has been super volatile. They go from playing for the national championship to not making a bowl game. Iowa State won 4 games in 2022, only 7 in 2023. Baylor damn near fired Dave Aranda last year in the middle of the season. So, like, how do you trust? How do you trust anybody else other than K-State to be there in contention? That would be my guess. That would be my guess. It's very stable. This is a bit of a corny analogy, but like I love a good Poke Bowl, but they're very hit or miss depending on where you're at. And so, man, if I'm in the Midwest and I've got an option, 2 like fast casual lunch places right next to each other, and it's Poke Bowl place or Chipotle, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go with Chipotle because I know that that's steady. I know what to expect. I know it's going to be pretty good. Poke Bowl could be outstanding, and when they're good, they're definitely better. But I don't know that I can totally trust it. That would be my analogy there. So anyway, there you have it. K-State, Big 12 favorites. Big 12 favorites, everybody. Please, if you want to make sure that you get on tonight, drop a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. Appreciate everybody who does that. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that totally free. Appreciate everybody who does that. That is amazing. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com if you would like to get the anonymous player survey, which is going to be coming out in parts this week. Okay, I got the best answer. I've only done this 2 years now, but I got the best answer that I've ever gotten at a football or basketball anonymous player survey about what was being offered to a player to transfer to a different school. It was pretty eye-opening, and I kept telling that to other players then later on that I was asking. They were like, whoa, yeah, I've never heard of that. So anyway, there's your tease. There's your tease, ofbnews.com to get signed up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Okay, you guys know I'm going to be excited about this. Cody Campbell talked to 365, the 365 crew at Big 12 Media Days. They did a great job of just spotting him and flagging him down. I did not see him till after he had done that interview, and it was great, guys. Go listen to it. Highly encourage you to go listen to it. SEC and Big Ten, a lot of people seem to be afraid of him or certainly threatened in some ways by Cody Campbell because he has such an in with President Trump right now. He explained why they should not be. They should not be scared. So if you're an SEC or a Big Ten fan, you see Cody Campbell, you don't like him, you run here to this video because of whatever the hell I made the title of it. When I clip this out, you're here, you're upset, you're freaking out. Just hear him out. Just wait and hear him out, okay? I'm going to play some clips from Cody Campbell. Why don't you just wait and hear him out? Now, part of the reason that I was talking about him this week and the reason that it's really so hot is because, look, this USA Today report, nobody is really talking about this, but to me, this was pretty significant. From Matt Hayes, Though the White House hasn't officially announced it, President Trump and Campbell have spoken at length about how to fix the problems of the last 4 years in college sports. There won't be a commission, as had previously been reported. A person who spoke on condition of anonymity told USA Today Sports it will follow much in the same way Trump deals with other problems. He finds a point person, and that point person reports directly to him. So this is a profile about Cody Campbell. Just said, President Trump and Cody Campbell have spoken a lot. They're ditching the whole idea of a commission, which was going to include Nick Saban, and now it's just going to be a point person. Well, they just told you. Who's already been talking to him about it. And the next thing is, when asked if he were that person, Campbell said, I've been in conversations with President Trump for quite some time now, and the one thing I can tell you is he cares very much about preserving college sports, doesn't he? He's saying, look, I've been talking to him. So no one's coming out and directly saying, yes, he's going to be the point person, but it is heavily insinuated in this article that Cody Campbell is the point person. And that is huge for the Big 12 to have a legitimate seat at the table and have somebody that can argue for the benefit of college sports as a whole and not just the benefit of the SEC or Big Ten. That's the key distinction here. Now I'm going to play you what Cody Campbell says his real mission is with this and how that's not a bad thing for the SEC or Big Ten. They stand to make a bunch more money out of this, which I think they very much do. And I know, like my guy Greg Flugar, shout out, go check out Peek Around the Corner, college football. He seems skeptical that there would be more money in this if everybody pooled their broadcast rights together like the NFL does, which is a huge part of what Campbell wants to do. But he does back up. He makes a case here that I'm going to play for you in just a moment for why the money would actually be there. There's also reporting in the USA Today that says a source told him it would double the amount of money that's there for college football TV rights right now. I mean, it seems safe to say that you would make more money doing that. The basic logistics of that make a lot more sense. If you have multiple media outlets bidding on the thing as one big entity, siphoning it off to a bunch of different partners like that, like the NFL does, seems pretty smart. If the NFL is doing it that way, it seems like that's a good way to maximize the amount of money that you are getting out of all of this, okay? So it's the Big Ten and the SEC can still reign supreme. The biggest brands can still very much reign supreme, even if it's Project Rudy, which is something I have advocated for, which would then redivide the map basically into 7 different geographic conferences that would have 10 teams in them. Even in that, the revenue is unevenly distributed, which is good for the big brands, right? They'll still be in control. It's just it won't be this wildly out of control so that they can't even keep their Olympic sports, and the arms race gets so crazy that they're having to cut Olympic sports and cut all these different things to just become like football factories. That's really what Cody Campbell is trying to prevent. And of course, if you do that, it helps keep everybody in the game, which again is better long term for the SEC and Big Ten. I was trying to explain this on Twitter again the other day too, like it's the concept of taking your vegetables as opposed to just gorging on a bunch of candy. Like right now, the SEC and the Big Ten, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey are in the mall. Back in the day for me, it was called Mr. Bulky's. Mr. Bulky's, like the candy store where they're just like the big tubes and you twist the knob and it just starts pouring out. I mean, they're just sitting there with their mouth under the candy, letting it pour in. And like, that's all great for a little while and it tastes great, but there's no nutritional value there. And over the long term, that's going to be bad if that's all that you're doing. Whereas if you make sure that the entire ecosystem is healthy while still maintaining your pole position there, that's eating your vegetables. That's getting a healthy, balanced meal that's going to make your body feel better and your long-term health better, and it will last longer. It's the problem right now. We're getting so bottlenecked to just the SEC and Big Ten. The damn thing's not going to last. Like, short-term cash grabs, you're going to cut off a bunch of what you need to keep the sport viable and popular long-term in America so that money spigot doesn't shut off. And that, I think, I'm putting words in Cody Campbell's mouth there, but that, I think, is really what he is trying to protect. But I will just let him tell you in his own words what exactly he is trying to do here. My apologies, 1 second. pull this up, share my screen for you. All right, let's get to Cody Campbell. So Cody Campbell wants to first put out there, he is not just in it for himself. This is about the greater good of all of college sports.
I think that people who are threatened by my ideas assume that if we all pool together our media rights, then that means that we're going to have some kind of socialist revenue distribution. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. What I'm trying to advocate for is just, a system where the small schools have enough money to sustain themselves, understanding that there are a lot of programs that bring a lot more eyeballs and a lot more value, and they're always going to have an advantage economically, until somebody competes with them and takes that spot. But all I'm looking for is just a way to try to solve this economic formula that right now is very, very broken and is going to result in opportunity lost and communities hurt and institutions hurt if we don't do something about it.
And Cody talked a lot about what was really impressive to me about what he did is he talked a lot about how much the opportunity to play college sports meant to him. And he dropped some stats that 60% of CEOs of, I believe, Fortune 500 companies all had college sports experience. Like, it's such a great proving ground for leadership. He brought up, if we start cutting Olympic sports, which is already happening across the country, Big Ten, place where that's probably most at risk because they have more than everybody. You start dropping Olympic sports, then that's how we train our athletes for the Olympics in this country, which is a different sort of model. We run into a bunch of trouble there. Like, he makes a good point for the overall health of college sports, not just obviously college football too. But I already kind of made the case for you on why this would be better for college football as a whole. But he is going totality of college sports, and it comes from a personal place because he experienced it. He says he attributes becoming a billionaire to everything he learned in college sports, which makes a lot of sense. You're going to learn a lot of really good things there. Playing at a high level under Mike Leach when he was in college at Texas Tech. And then he's like, look, I'm a guy who I've experienced the playing college sports. I've experienced the big business world, and this is definitely a business problem. And I've also been heavily involved in NIL, so I have an understanding of this from all different angles, which I think is also pretty indisputable. Okay, so let's get to the next clip. Let's get to the next clip here from Cody Campbell, which is a little bit more. He was asked, and I thought it was a really good question, asked about the fact that if you are in the SEC or Big Ten, you might feel a little bit threatened by him right now because for once, somebody other than an SEC or Big Ten wonk is out there potentially having a lot of influence. And he says the SEC and Big Ten should be in favor of this.
If the SEC is or Big Ten is threatened by me, they shouldn't be, because I'm just trying to make them more money, to be honest with you. I mean, if we modify the Sports Broadcasting Act, they're going to benefit the most of anybody. And so they shouldn't be concerned about what I'm doing. And a lot of their institutions are having to cut sports. I mean, the Big Ten schools have really big budgets, but it's because they sponsor a whole bunch of sports. Barely any of them, only one that I'm aware of, runs a budget surplus. So they have to find a place to come up with this salary cap money, and that means they're going to have to cut programs. I think people have made the assumption that I'm looking for some kind of revenue distribution where we're going to take a bunch of money away from them and give it to other people. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that we can sustain everybody, and the Big Ten and the SEC included, make sure that they can keep their gymnastics and their swimming and all these things that they do, wrestling, all the things that they do really well that a lot of people don't even participate in.
And so the general idea there is, okay, well, we gotta get more money. Like right now, you have to rev share. That's hurting budgets, right? That's an extra $20+ million that all these schools are having to find in their budgets. That's going to lead to having to slash other things to make that viable. Well, what if we can double the amount of TV revenue that's out there just by pooling the rights? That puts a lot more money in the ecosystem for everybody. You can still slant it toward the big brands. It doesn't mean that it has to be everybody's just getting an equal revenue share. That's not what's going to happen. And I think that is like some of the frustration you can sense there. Like, hey, man, that's not what I'm trying to do. That is not what I'm trying to do. So if you are skeptical, though, like I mentioned, I got a little bit of pushback or saw some pushback on that on Twitter. would there actually be that much more money that is out there? Okay. Here was Cody Campbell's explanation on how pooling the TV rights actually would make everybody more money. If my computer will load, which it is being very slow. My apologies.
And one way to do that is, like as you mentioned, is to give college sports the same rights to market their media that the pro sports have, where they all pool together and they make one media deal. And so they get a lot more money. They also can optimize their scheduling. Right now, we cannibalize viewership like crazy. We stack marquee matchups on top of one another. We don't have enough time slots. Why doesn't every team play in week 0? Why doesn't every team play on Army-Navy week? It doesn't make any sense. We need to find a way to expand the economic pie and optimize our scheduling.
That is one thing you can do, is if you have everybody's rights together, you can play puppet master on the schedule so much more than you can right now to effectively put everything in the best windows possible, right? I mean, you want to talk about maybe some more options for like some flex type of scheduling, but obviously like spreading things out more, less competition between different windows. The NFL is great at this, and the NFL continues to expand to just playing on every single different night of the week possible. I mean, there are so many possibilities you can use to milk more TV money out of this. And if you're saying, is that really that much more money? Well, ask yourself. I mean, look, one of the big things about the Big Ten wanting the 4 auto bids is because they want to create this like play-in weekend, and there's so much extra value in creating an extra game there in a time slot that's, the Big 12, why is the Big 12 2 years in a row doing week 0 in Ireland? Because it gets a bunch of eyeballs on you and nobody else is watching. Like, clearly this is already the strategy. If you can work that strategy then with total control over the entire board and not having to worry about everything being splintered and all of this, all the complaining, one thing I've heard, like the Josh Pates of the world complain a lot about on behalf of Penn State fans, is like Penn State not being able to get certain games as a night game because of Big Noon. And there's all these these great Big Ten games getting put at noon because that's where Fox wants to take them. And you can fix that. You can fix that and fix it across the whole totality of the sport. It would, I think, very clearly generate a lot more money for a lot of reasons that are pretty simple to understand. That is my opinion. I certainly trust Cody Campbell on this one. He's also a guy that is a multi-billionaire, so he does seem to know a thing or two about business. Anyway, I thought Cody Campbell came across very calm, cool, collected. Like this, I thought listening to him, I was like, man, it's no one. This guy has such a great demeanor about him. He's not flustered, bombastic. I would love to see him debate back and forth with like Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti the merits of this. Or, I mean, boy, if you put him with like a Paul Finebaum or something, I mean, I feel like Campbell would just like totally wipe the floor. I'm not sure that that's really like a fair fight. But if it were the actual leadership of the SEC and Big Ten, like in a boardroom behind closed doors, I'd love to know what those conversations would actually sound like. So I think you should listen to this. Go listen. First of all, go listen to the full thing. It's like a 20-minute interview, 365 Sports. I need to, you know what? I didn't do it before the show. I'm going to pop in a link after the live show here to it too, just in the comments so you guys can see it, because it's awesome. Go listen to it. I think you'll come away very impressed. I think as a Big 12 fan, you should come away feeling very good about the fact that this guy's here at the table advocating for the overall health of college sports. This is what we all want. We want this to stay as intact as possible. Everybody has been looking at this thinking like, man, this is getting out of control and this could get away from us all very quickly. Cody Campbell sees that. He understands fully, and he wants to try and put as much toothpaste back in the tube as you possibly can. So anyway, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of what is going on with that. Okay, I've got maybe 10, 15 minutes left. I got one more story for you that I want to get to. But before that, we have a couple of super chats. So you've got time still. Click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat. You want to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight. Totally free to like the channel and subscribe. I appreciate everybody who does that. Let's talk to Alan. What's going on, Alan? Appreciate you being here. Thank you, my friend. Alan says, John, thanks for being the voice of the Big 12. Well, that is very kind of you. I think there are plenty of us who share in that responsibility, but I really appreciate that. What was said about my Jayhawks during Big 12 Media Days? Who is your dark horse to make the Big 12 title game? 52 days until KU Mizzou border war. Well, I'm very much looking forward to KU Mizzou. After my experience, I was telling someone with the KU contingent down there, Alan, at Big 12 Media Days about this. I said, you guys please go drill Missouri, because when I was in Columbia 2 years ago, we were not treated very nicely. I was wearing my nice new Emon jacket. We were not treated very nicely walking out of that stadium after they won on a 60-plus yard field goal. So, Alan, I will have no love lost if you guys go out there and beat them. So please do. Work backwards here. Dark horse to make the Big 12 title game, I'd say TCU or Utah. I think both of those teams definitely have a chance, maybe a good chance, to make the Big 12 championship game. With Utah, it's like if Dampier can stay healthy. With TCU, it's if the schedule maybe turns out to not be quite as difficult as it looks on paper. TCU is a really interesting case where, because of their non-con, I don't know, could TCU possibly be a team that kind of gets the Big 12 in some hot water? Like, say they lose both of the games to SMU and North Carolina, because remember, they open up at UNC. If they lose both of those games, maybe I should say this for like a big picture take here, and then they go, say, what would it be, 7-2 in the Big 12, and tie-break their way into the Big 12 championship game and then win it, and you're sitting there and looking at them being like a 9-4 Big 12 champion. Are we sitting here like, oh boy, Tulane's 11-1 and just won the AAC, and Boise's unbeaten? Could you be in trouble there? But I would pick them as a dark horse that could make the Big 12 championship game. What was said about your Jayhawks? Well, I was really inquisitive to a lot of people about the receiver room, because I just thought so damn highly about those receivers, especially Luke Grimm. Like, that guy was just always there to make a big catch. Incredibly annoying to play against as a fan of his arch rival, which is the highest compliment I can pay him. But, Lawrence Arnold, Quentin Skinner, like, those guys were really good receivers for a long time. I mean, I did hear a lot of optimism. The Alabama transfer, is Henderson? The Alabama transfer, there was a lot of buzz for. So I know that there was that going on. That was the main thing. When I was talking to some KU people, I was really trying to be inquisitive about the receiver, what that was going to be like. So that's what I got for you, Alan. That's my scoop. That's my scoop. Optimism for the receiver room that's going to be like totally brand new. Appreciate you, Alan. Thank you for being here, my friend. Wyatt, what's up, Wyatt? Thank you for being here. Wyatt says Cody Campbell is not doing this to save the Big 12. Tech donors are doing everything to make sure Tech gets a seat at the big table. Well, I understand why there would be some skepticism about like Texas Tech's motivations as a whole. Texas Tech is spending big right now to try and establish itself, first of all, a seat at the head of the Big 12 table, and then beyond that, what can we do in further years? What can we do in 2030 if this thing's going to turn into a super league or the SEC is going to be forced to expand more? I would just say a couple things on this, Wyatt. One, I don't think it's super likely that Texas Tech would get to a point where it's going to be an SEC ad, or Big Ten. I think SEC is probably the only one that would be a fit. I think that's very unlikely. Two, I think it's very much possible that you can be working on both things here. I mean, I think Cody Campbell can work for the best interest of not just the Big 12, but college sports as a whole, which is what he just said in the audio that I played you. You can be doing that while at the same time still having plenty of money to just fund whatever at Texas Tech to keep giving Tech shots to get to the playoff, build a brand that I think you're insinuating could one day become big enough to get them into the SEC. You can do both of those things at the same time. You can preserve the better good of college sports and still be bankrolling your alma mater well enough to position it for its best future too. But I'll tell you one thing, Wyatt, what would happen whether or not Cody Campbell is angling for the Sports Broadcasting Act and changing how that's done and trying to reform college sports, if he dropped that tomorrow for whatever reason, or you told him, hey, I'm Wyatt Ridge, you got to drop that, and you told him he had to drop that, he'd go right back to doing the exact same thing that Texas Tech's trying to do now, which would be bankrolling their way to the SEC if that's the only option that they're going to have to get to the top level. So I would view it like you got two choices here, man. You can let Texas Tech just devote all their time and energy to the main thing, Texas Tech in their case, I guess, or you can have Cody Campbell also work to try and reform college sports and work that to everybody's betterment. Because like my question would be, I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten are looking at this like, hey, how are you going to kneecap us with this deal and make us less powerful? Theoretically, it would be making money less of a problem for him. I guess I'm just failing to see how whatever he would be doing for college athletics reform would be specifically better for only Texas Tech and not anybody else. That's a really tough needle to thread. To me, this is a little bit conspiratorial. I understand some skepticism, but it's a little conspiratorial, and I would say you got to take the good with the bad. Look, Texas Tech's already done it, man. That portal roster's bought. They're going to go out there with a $50 million roster this year. I guess we only know that it was above 40. They're going to go out there with a $40 million roster this year, whether you like it or not. I would like to take Cody Campbell's power and influence and use it to help everybody at the same time while he's also separate side hustle trying to make the best for Texas Tech. I mean, I guess I view it kind of like, look, I do a K-State podcast. I certainly want what's best for K-State. I root for K-State. It's my alma mater. But I'm also doing a Big 12 show, and I advocate for the best interest of the Big 12. If you told me, hey, you can't do the Big 12 show anymore, whatever reason, you're off, too ugly, can't do a Big 12 show, only attractive people can talk about the Big 12, then I'd be like, well, if I can hide my face behind something and still do the K-State podcast, I'm still going to do K-State, right? So take it or leave it. Do you want both? Do you want the help of both, or do you want just dedicating all the energy to his school? Let's see. Nate, what's up? Nate, John, what is your prediction for Farmageddon International? I'm biased. I want Iowa State to win. However, I want both schools to put on a good show to shut up Finebaum and other critics. Well, thank you for bringing up Finebaum to perfectly lead into the last story today. My prediction, look, I'll tell you, if you're an Open for Business subscriber, ofbnews.com, to subscribe to the newsletter, you already know I picked K-State 4th in my Big 12 ballot that I submitted to Gambling Gauchos. I picked Iowa State 3rd, and I picked that, Nate, because I would predict Iowa State to win the game in Ireland. It's pretty simple. Both teams have experienced QBs, but Rocco Becht has been more steady, and Matt Campbell has just owned that game lately. He's won 4 of the last 5, and the one that K-State won was a 1-point win in Ames over a 4-win Iowa State team the year that K-State won the Big 12. So Iowa State has just gotten the better of this game. And much as I may hate to admit it, the K-State fan of me does, that is the reality. So you're telling me all the variables that could happen in a week 0 game, beginning of the year, across the pond, I don't feel good about it if I'm a K-State fan. So right now my prediction would be Iowa State in a close win. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I know K-State fans won't be happy with that, but I feel like I've been pretty clear. Even on the 3-Mod podcast, I feel like I've been pretty clear with where I'm at on that. So appreciate you, Nate. Thank you for being here. I'm guessing you're feeling like that was well worth your $10. Your $10. I do. Trip. You know what? This was actually very funny. This was very funny. I'm not even mad. This is a very funny comment. Bless your heart, John. You're an idiot. That's the funniest comment I've seen in a while. So thank you for that. I hope that's how all of you feel. If you guys are going to call me an idiot, if you could just, throw a nice little bless your heart, John, before it, that would make me feel a little bit better. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, the last thing here. Paul Finebaum's coming after the Big 12 again. And this time it's by going after the league's biggest and most well-known personality. I got to stop and ask the question today, is there actually some truth to what Paul Finebaum is saying? Is there actually some truth to what Paul Finebaum is saying this time? Nate just brought up, hey, let's shut up Paul Finebaum. Nate's an Iowa State fan. Iowa State fans should probably hate Finebaum more than anybody. This guy's long been taking shots at the Big 12. And Iowa State has been the victim of a couple of these recently. Back in 2021, admittedly a disappointing season for Iowa State that year. Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, all those guys, they go 7-6. But that was when Paul Finebaum had the comment like, Iowa State was like ranked, how high were they, Clone fans? Top 10, top 15, getting a lot of preseason buzz. And when they struggled, Finebaum was like, look, don't ever tell me about Iowa State again. I'm never buying Iowa State hype again. Don't ever tell me about that again. And then within the last couple of years, was this 2 seasons ago? He's talking about environments, and someone had mentioned like Iowa State being a tough place to play, and he said, go to Starkville at night. Like, he's talking about the lower level SEC venues and basically trying to say a Big 12 venue cannot compete with that, which Paul Finebaum should be forced to go experience Ames in a night game, I would say, and then get back to me on that. That's some slanderous stuff there. And then criticized Brett Yormark recently for prioritizing his own self-interest over the greater good of college football, which is quite the hilarious comment coming from anybody with stark SEC bias or based in SEC country. We know where this guy's loyalties lie, right? He was beating the drum hard on Bama and Ole Miss and South Carolina in the playoff before kind of changing his tune, but he was out front there for a while leading that. He at least changed his tune on Bama a little bit, I believe, after they started getting slugged around to that bowl game. Well, now this man, Paul Finebaum's going after the biggest ticket personality in the Big 12, which is Deion. Okay, he's coming after Deion, and the good thing about Deion, whether you like him or not, is that these comments from Paul Finebaum didn't even just come on his show. It came on, was it First Take or Get Up? One of the two. One of the major day part ESPN shows. My apologies for forgetting that already. But how often is the Big 12 getting talked about in that real estate? And I would say 2 things. One, again, smart move by Brett Yormark to get Big 12 Media Days out of the chute first before Big 10, SEC, anything else. We're so starved for football content. Better chance of that happening, even if it were like after the others. You're not going to get as much run then because we're starved for football content now. We need it. They're going to go send people there. They're going to go reach to it. It was a very smart scheduling move to do that. And you combine that with the star power of Deion and how much he is lightning rod to the casuals, and you got a segment on First Take. And so Paul Finebaum's brought in on that. They were talking about one of the comments Deion made. I believe this was at the coaches roundtable, and he was talking about a salary cap, that we need a salary cap in college football. And his problem with it was that, hey, big stars should get paid, but it's frustrating when you've got a guy who's not a big star and someone's going to throw $500,000 at him, and so now you've got to pay him that, or he's going to leave your roster, and it's a little bit out of control because of that. And so Paul Finebaum gets very frustrated about that and says on the salary cap, quote, "It may happen one day, but they need to solve some more basic problems first." And then he comes after Deion specifically and says, quote, "He just changes the narrative depending on who is on his team." So he's calling him out for the fact that Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are not on the team anymore. He said, quote, "Would Deion have been in favor of a cap then, as in when they were on his team? Of course not." Well, a couple of things here. One, Finebaum, I think, is a little bit off in what he is saying here, because I think the assumption is, well, look how much the 2 players there, Shedeur and Travis Hunter, would have taken of your cap had there been a cap. But last year, Deion was he's enough of a magnetic personality and people want to go play for him. Obviously, one of the guys was his son. Okay, I understand that. But Travis Hunter didn't even take money from Colorado's collective. I don't think either of them did. They had these NIL deals outside of themselves. But when you're playing for Coach Prime, you're going to get some of that extra spotlight. You'll have more earning potential with NIL deals like that. So Coach Prime kind of Deion leveraged himself to help that happen, to where it wasn't even, if there were a cap last year, wouldn't have been eating up part of the cap. Because that's what happens when you get into the orbit and the sphere of Deion. So I think that's a little bit off, Finebaum. I think that's a little bit off. I think that's a little bit unfair. He also insinuated that this was, well, he didn't insinuate, he directly stated this was a way for Deion to say, hey, my team is going to be boring and not very good this year, so let's talk about something else. That I also think is very unfair. I also think that is very unfair. Like, we'll discuss the merits of whether or not the team will be exciting or good in just a moment. But do I think this was all some calculated play? Like, Deion really doesn't care about that at all. And he's so calculated that, one, he doesn't believe the team is going to be good. And 2, he believes they're not going to be good and he wants to create some distraction by throwing that out there. I don't think you know Dion very well at all if that's the case. You think Dion legitimately doesn't think this team's going to be good? No, man, I think Dion absolutely thinks that this team is going to be good. If you're going to accuse him of creating a different storyline, it's like, I mean, he brought both quarterbacks there who are competing for the job. Like, he's throwing storylines at you with that. It's not, hey, look, we need a salary cap. Also, the context of that roundtable, like, they're being asked questions. Like, to me, that just didn't feel at all like a calculated Dion's going out of his way to say that. That felt a little unfair from Paul Finebaum, which shouldn't really be too surprising. But is his point on this team not actually being very good or entertaining correct is the thing. That's one thing I might say is a fair criticism. I wouldn't might say it. I will say it. I think that's a fair criticism from Paul Finebaum. And Colorado's team might be mediocre and kind of boring this year. I mean, you think about where Colorado has been. First of all, Travis Hunter wins the Heisman. Magnetic player. Everybody wants to watch him. But then you've got Shedeur, who was the bigger story in the draft. I mean, think about the draft coverage this year. It was all about Shedeur Sanders until he got drafted. And then even after he got drafted, still pretty Shedeur heavy, right? That's how we covered the entire freaking NFL draft this year, because there was that much pull around the guys that were on the team last year. Really, no matter what happens, even if you got equally as talented a quarterback and receiver / DB combo as those two, they're not going to get as much attention as what happened last year. So inevitably, it's going to be a little more boring. You've also got, I think, just some novelty for Dion wearing off. Now that, it's going to be his third year as a coach. He's not moving conferences this year. It's his second year in the Big 12. Some of the novelty with Dion is wearing off. So it's going to be a little bit more boring because of that. And it doesn't help that you now have the new hot young thing. No offense, Bill Belichick. I don't think we're checking that young box. But the new, oh, wow, look at this big national name that casuals are going to pay attention to head coach is now Bill Belichick. And he's kind of taken that from Coach Prime. Now, maybe Coach Prime likes that. But that'll take some of the shadow or some of the spotlight off of him. He can move in the shadows a little bit more, and that's better. Maybe. It's definitely going to remove some novelty. So they are objectively going to be more boring this year. No matter what happens, they're objectively a more boring team this year than they were last year. Are they going to be better? I mean, I think it would take like Caden Salter or Juju Lewis if he's going to be ready right away. It's got one of those guys has to be a superstar if this team's really going to be better. We did see some good program building signs last year. Running game getting better, defense getting better, which I think took me and many people a little bit by surprise. But I still think you're just losing so much. There's still a lot of turnover there, and to me, it's Shedeur, man. Travis Hunter's amazing, deserved the Heisman Trophy, but Shedeur was kind of a miracle worker with that offensive line, and unless that's really changed, I just have a hard time seeing Caden Salter or Juju Lewis being that type of guy, and I think it's going to lead to them taking a step back to being like a 7-5 sort of team. But hey, Colorado haters would sit here and say, John, you said that last year, and look what happened. Fair enough. Maybe it's another 9-3 year. Either way, I'm going to give Paul Finebaum a little smidge of credit. I think he made one point in all of that is kind of fair. The rest of it seems unfair, like a bit of an unfair attack there at Coach Prime. Okay, kind of a marathon show here. We're running 15 minutes late. This was a long one today, but we're wrapping up Big 12 Media Days, and when I say wrap it up, we're really not. I mean, I've got a full list of stuff that I haven't even gotten to that's come out from Big 12 Media Days, so hopefully we'll just keep digging our way through it, man, as we move through July. If you want that Big 12 Anonymous Player Survey, make sure and sign up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. We are approaching 4,500 subs to that. My apologies for going brain dead and blank on the number earlier, but it's totally free to your inbox twice a week. Like the video on your way out. Please subscribe to the channel. All of that really does help me. I appreciate all of you guys for that. If you are not watching live, you want to get a question or comment in to start the next show, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo is how you can do that. You can submit a question or comment with your donation there. And, hey, thank you all for being here. Appreciate you. Great chat tonight. And take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and the start of your week. I'll talk to you soon.